Dobar dan. I am Laura Jones, and this is my Serbian Journey that I did with a Global Experiences course through Emporia State University. Here we go. So I don't want to make this a travel log. Those can be kind of long and tedious. So what I want you to experience is more of what I learned in my reflections of this journey. So I wanted to start with this slide. While I was in Serbia, I stopped and purchased this embroidery work. And it kind of symbolically, in an odd way, represented my journey while I was there. And what I mean by that was, of course, you purchase this, you have no idea what it says. And then because of the script, when you put it through Google Translate, Google Translate struggles to translate it because of the embroidery work. And that's kind of how I felt as I was trying to understand and learn what Serbia needed to teach me. I felt like I was trying to do it through a Google Translate filter. And so some things didn't come out right. But on the whole, it was a wonderful experience. So I know this doesn't really say I'm waiting for a dear guest today. I need to shoot a lot. I think it may say something closer to I'm waiting for a dear guest today. I need to get a lot done. But it's back to how things are lost in translation and how we as English speakers and Serbian speakers communicated. But at the end of the day, there were a lot of similarities between us and Serbia. My experience in Serbia was quite a mishmash, similar to this picture. And as I stated before, how much I understood. But in this collage, you see everything that I experienced, even though it's just a small little snippet. Walking down the pedestrian area, having a Roman lunch or dinner, visiting libraries, seeing their dedication to study, little quirky things like in Novi Sad having locks signed and dated and locked to the overlook of the fortress that was there, archives, museums, libraries, children's sections, historical areas and memories, and then things that just really represented the culture very clearly, very distinct. And that was my overall experience. And one thing that I enjoy really was taking it all in and then coming back to Hotel Moscova at the end of the day and having a little bit of tea and a little bit of dessert. But overall, it was a really enlightening and uplifting experience. So what did I learn? First of all, I learned how dedicated the Serbians are, especially the ones that we met in the library and information world. I put this picture here because it really represented their dedication to their education, something we don't really show as much here in the United States, where, libraries to them are still shushing libraries because they want to go in and they want to study and they want to do well. And that definitely shows hope for their country, for their nation. that they are so dedicated and that they have a love and a passion for it. But even with all of this seriousness in their country and all of the disparities and wars and struggles that they've gone through, they love to laugh and they love to enjoy um, things around them. And so it's kind of like they're committed, they're serious about it, they want to have a good future, and they're gonna enjoy it and laugh as they go along. Things that I noticed between librarianship in Serbia and compared to the United States is, first and foremost, there were similarities. Definitely an influence of what I would term American style type of librarianship in a lot of aspects, but then also some of that I can't claim is totally American since it's historical. And, it just comes from the Western world and how that all develops. But, there's the similarities that we both have story times and book clubs, and we provide programming, and we purchase materials, and we put it on our bookshelves. And if you go into archives and museums, a lot of that is taught worldwide. But some of the things that, as I was studying and doing my papers and reflecting upon the things that I saw, is they are, especially the libraries we visited, it seemed like they were more dynamic in their programming, that it was more literacy based and not so much entertainment based. It was real education and focused on reading. And even though, they might have other materials and resources out there, it was built around, we need to get books and that whole focus. Whereas in the United States, it almost seems like it's getting, I don't want to say completely getting away from books, but it definitely felt like, when comparing it, we are trying to get more into a library, and books are not the top priority anymore. And here I have an example of two story times where, there's all of these books behind the librarian. The kids are engaged, they're listening to the stories. Maybe they'll get up and move around. But then a picture of me doing story time where it almost looks more like a preschool. The books are there, but it's definitely a little bit different. Kids are going to still check out books, but the focus is getting up and moving and wiggling. And even though we're teaching the early literacy skills, I'm not sitting in a chair and reading a story in the traditional way. So whether or not that's true completely for Serbia and the United States, it was definitely, something that I saw, especially in my experiences and what I know what to do. The culture, well, this was easy for me to write about since I discussed culture in the collaborative paper that I wrote, not paper, but the website. Serbia and the United States. So Serbia likes to, like many countries, model after the United States. But some of the little things that I noticed is they dress a little bit more chic, and maybe that's because it was in the city. It could be different in the countryside. Because everybody's walking, you don't see a lot of really fancy shoes. You see a lot of tennis shoes, and many of the stores that I saw there that sold shoes mainly had like really fancy tennis shoes. I put the picture here because it really denoted the culture historically and then also where they are now currently. This is taken in Novi Sad. They, they have kind of a more uh, lax concept about their day. Their meals are kind of drawn out, and it's, kind of after a work day, you go out, you sit down, you eat, you drink, and you go back. But then I also really watched families and how families interacted. And, it was, I had a chuckle. It's pretty similar to the United States. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, when your child is behaving well, you're having a good time. And when your child is behaving badly, we all try to discipline our kids. And so there was that similarity. For the United States, the reason why I wanted to put this picture here is to show, I come from an agricultural area, very rural. And so for me, the difference between being in Belgrade and Novi Sad, which are bigger cities, and then, of course, we're pioneers and cowboys. And so that difference, over in the one picture, you have carriages historically, even though, yes, the United States have carriages, but when people think of the United States, they think of the pioneers and wagons. So there's a lot more culture that I could discuss, and I would just invite you to look at my website that I created with my fellow collaborators to compare ideas. One thing that I noticed for me, there were millions of ideas through archives and museums, but for me, libraries is my focus. And one thing I noticed in each of the libraries we visited is how they utilized every single space, because books are so important to them, and it costs so much for them to purchase books that weeding, even though it's done, is probably not enjoyable. And so they put all of their books in any usable space and in any fashion. They're either double stacked, or here, they're shoved behind books. And we would look at that as saying, oh, we need a weed, we need to have less on the shelf. But when you value your books as much as they do, because they come at such a high cost, you're going to hold on to them and you're going to make room in the little bit of space you're given. And so they really do use every usable space. And that was a reminder to me that, even though we may go through and weed and do our collection development management in that way, it's just a reminder that sometimes, even though we say a library isn't an archive, it still is. We're holding on to books and we're holding on to materials. And, it doesn't matter where you are, the budget is tight and it's going to be tight. And so you use what you got. Did it change me? Yes. Anytime you travel, anytime you go to another location and you learn about that culture and you learn about that society, it adds a little piece to your growth and your development. And so, yes, it did change me. I came back with a new perspective on another country and how they do things and how they operate things and how they are different and how they are similar. And when I came back, yeah, I did have new insights and new ideas, or I thought through things a little bit more. For me, it changed my perspective even more on early literacy, and I've been working on early literacy for a while with my particular library, and it made me stop and think, how is early literacy being addressed worldwide? and how do people see it important. And so I wrote a paper for this class on early literacy in Serbia and then throughout the world, and it's definitely something that I want to continue to look into and see how we can improve that and educate parents and caregivers. Would I go back? Was it worth it? Yeah, it was definitely worth it. So I just want to say thank you to all of the librarians and curators and archivists, and the list goes on and on. Drivers, the people at the hotels, Andrew Smith, the fellow travelers I was with. I just want to say, Havala, thank you so much for this experience. As I said before, it was definitely worth it, and I would encourage others to take advantage of this, because it is truly a once in a lifetime opportunity, and you learn so much, and it really does open your eyes to a whole new culture and country and people that are absolutely wonderful. So thank you.